you want to break into the tech industry and are learning software development, you have to have a good portfolio of applications in order to get the job you want. A lot of new developers try to make the very basic apps like calculators, to-do lists, or tic-tac-toe apps and think employers will get down on their knees and give them a job.
I beg of you.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. In this video, I'll take you through a typical roadmap of developing a full stack application that an employer will be impressed with and something you can talk in interviews for and show them your vast technical knowledge.
So smart.
I'll be going through the PERN Stack, which involves PostgreSQL for the database, ExpressJS for the backend framework, React for the front-end framework, and Node.js for the backend runtime environment. I'll be also showing you some glimpses of the application that I'm creating right now, so let's get started. Okay, I'll start off by talking about the general process for creating that first application. Try to choose something that you generally somewhat are interested in or would like to be seen created, like solving some sort of a problem that you're having. The first full stack application I created was an NBA fantasy app. This was just an app to pull NBA player data from an API and present it to the user in a quicker and more user-friendly way. But the current app I'm creating is an application for a checkout automation. I'm building it as a general application, but probably going to target it for certain shoe sites or something like that. Think of the key features you want and write them down and make sure you have a plan of what you need. Overall, a stack like the PERN Stack will help solve most of the problems or types of apps you want to make. You just need a creative idea. Okay, let's just start off by focusing on the front end part because it's a little more easier to digest as a new developer. But regardless, as you're developing the application, you have to go back and forth. We'll be using React for this part, which will make it very easy to really make your code more modular by using components to build the overall architecture. And it's quite fast because of its virtual DOM feature. As a front-end developer, you want to make your application look as good as possible. You definitely want to add some styling frameworks like Material UI, which I'm also currently using to really beef up the application to look as good as possible. Because when you're presenting it to future employers, then you definitely want to be able to have it looking presentable. Once you've chosen your front-end framework, start creating some wireframe diagrams to get a rough outline of how you want the application to look. So you don't just open up your code editor and blindly start coding things up. You definitely want a plan going into this. But also don't hang up on any ideas and waste your time planning because things will change as you go along, so try to be as adaptive as possible. Okay, now for the backend. For this, you're going to be using Node.js, which is a runtime environment for JavaScript, so you can use it on the server side. And Express is a framework to make it easier to build a backend with Node.js. With this combination, you'll be creating what's called a REST API so that it becomes easier for your frontend to interact with your database and server correctly and securely. This also goes hand in hand with CRUD operations, which is create, read, update, and delete, which represents the 4 basic operations that can be performed on data in a web service or database. In the context of REST APIs, they correspond with the following HTTP methods. For create, which is the process of adding new resources to the system, say for example like adding new users to your application, this is carried out by the HTTP post method. And read is for when a user wants to actually retrieve existing data from the system. Things like maybe their saved profile information or like product information from a website. Like say for example, the price of a shoe on the Nike website. This is carried out by the HTTP GET method. Whereas update is when you want to, say for example, update your user profile, like change your phone number or something else. This is carried out by the HTTP put or patch method. And finally, we have the delete method, which at this point is self-explanatory, but it's when you want to delete information, say credit card information or something else in your profile. This is carried out by the HTTP delete method. Okay, now that we're at the halfway point, I want to give a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. It'll mean a lot to me and hopefully I'm providing some value to you guys. Okay, back to the video. I wanted to create a separate section for this because it's one of the most important concepts. One of the most important concepts of creating an application is create user authentication. There's not many good apps out there where you can log in and have a personalized experience. So you definitely want to include this in your application. This can be done by using middleware within the Express framework. Middleware functions are basically responsible for processing incoming HTTP requests before they reach their final route handlers. So when you create the login routes for your user, there's usually a JSON web token, which is a unique identifier for that user, which is generated and stored safely on the client side. That way, when the user moves around inside the application, that web token can be used with the middleware function to authorize the user before they move into a next page or use a function in the application. Now for databases. So for this application, we're going to be using a relational database called PostgreSQL. Relational databases are types of databases that store or organize data in tables which consist of rows and columns. An easy way to visualize your database is by using entity relationship diagrams, which help model the structure of a database. Let's use a simple example. Say that you're building an application for a bookstore, for the buying and selling of books basically. There are three main tables you can make: the customers, the books, and the orders. To make them related to each other, we have three types of relationships. One-to-one, which means one instance of A can have one instance of B. One-to-many, which means there can be many of B and that link to one instance of A. And then we have many-to-many, which means that there can be many of A linked to many of B. Okay, now that we got that quick explanation out of the way, let me get back to our example and make sense of it. So we have a customer table and an orders table. One customer can make multiple orders, and in many different orders, there can be many types of books. See how that works now? The users, orders, and books all have their own unique IDs that can be referenced amongst each other. So that's what makes relational databases so very powerful. Well, alright, that's the roadmap you guys need to get this thing going. All you need to do is deploy and show the employers what you're made of. If you want to know the exact roadmap to becoming a front-end developer, hit that video to my right. And if you want to know my journey, hit that video to my left. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.